Hello and welcome to the Wikipedia Weekly Network. Here where Albin Larsson and I, Jan Ainali, are editing Wikidata Live. How are you doing, Albin?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Jan?
I'm good as well, and I'm excited because today it's the Wikidata Data Quality Days, or not today only. We're in the middle of this week.
Yeah, it's tomorrow as well.
Yeah, and we're going to focus a little bit on that topic. We're going to do constraints we promised people. What kinds of edits or queries will you be doing?
I thought we would demystify constraints a little bit. We're gonna do some editing, actually editing of constraints
All right.
on a very much of a meta level. But then I'm also gonna show you how you can query the constraints in VDQS or with SparkQL, and a bit of that. And you, Jan?
I'm going to do mostly, I think, some manual things around like what do you see in their interface when you're editing
Yeah.
uh, constraints or when you encounter constraints, and what can you do to fix the things, because there's various kinds of things that you can fix. Uh, so that's where we're gonna go. And I'm a little bit stuck here because I'm trying to get our tweet out, but our tweet doesn't start. So let me see if I can get that. All right. So anyway, wait, we should perhaps start with an explanation. What is the property constraints? And
Indeed.
you can think about it as some sort of rules or guidelines on how we want to use properties and what values we want to put in them. And as with everything in the wiki world, this is sort of like a work in progress. So it's not done at all now. You will see there are things missing, and especially there might be exceptions missing, and you might very well think of ways to improve them. Like, hey, if we have this, then we should probably have that. And sometimes it's easy to add it, sometimes it's complex and a little bit harder. But there's a lot of flexibility and there are a lot of things.
Indeed. And it's one of those things that even if it's a part of the UI, it pops up a little bit of an icon. It's still something that the community maintains in its entirety. So it's completely open for anyone to contribute to and edit.
Yes. So I will show you a bit of my editing flow on a few items. So I'm going to share my screen here, I hope. Yes. Let's see if I also did get. Yes, I think I got the tweet going there. So here's the sort of your help page. It's a little bit of a long name, Help Property Constraints Portal. But here you can see all the different kinds we have. We have like simple ones, like there can only be one value, and you can format the values, and the values can be of different types and stuff like that. So to be very practical, I'm going to jump here into this is a Swedish government agency. It's the Environmental Protection Agency. And we're just going to take a look here in the UI and see what we see. And I'm scrolling down here. And the thing that we're going to look for is sort of information markers or warning signs or flashing arrows. Or they're not flashing, but they look like a lightning strike. And here we see the first one. We see this little bit of a exclamation point. And then this is something from the constraints about the property email address. And if you click on this, you will actually see some defined help text. Oh, we also even have some expanded here. All right, so here it actually says how we could do this. But the thing that we really want here is we want, of course, a citation. Because we don't want people to have wrong email addresses, and we don't want people to send spam to the wrong places. So that's why we especially want this on this.
Yeah.
So we're actually just going to start here by going to the website and see if we can find this one being mentioned somewhere. And if we can find it, let's add that as a source. And if we not can find it, I'm going to remove the thing. So let's accept some cookies. And I'm going to look for some sort of contact page here. Here in the top.
Maybe a search for. Oh, there we go.
Let's see. So we had the first one here.
Yeah, I think we actually got it at the top there.
Ah, yes. So we have the one there. All right. So we'll copy this. Is it the same even? No, it's not the same. So we'll add a reference to this one. And we retrieved it today. And I'll just publish that. And woo,
Nice.
the exclamation point is gone. And we fixed one thing already. And I'm just going to show you how this actually looks on this property. This one we wouldn't want to change, but we will also see where we find them. So on the properties, we first have the regular statements, but if you scroll down in the list, we have a section actually called constraints. And here we see various different kinds of constraints. And here is the one, citation needed constraint. That was the one that caused our little thing to pop up there. And we're not going to change this because this is a good and helpful one. So thank you for that one. And we'll head back into our item here and see, do we find anything else? So we'll scroll down. Oh, and here we see something. Here,
Oh, interesting.
a little bit more angry thing. This statement has some issues. We'll click on this. And property scope constraint. The property programming paradigm should not be used in this location as qualifier. The only valid location for this property is as main value. And I'll show you how this looks also on the property here.
Yeah.
So we'll scroll down here to the constraint, and let's see. Yes, so here we have a property scope constraint, and it says as main value. So the community for now has decided that this one shouldn't be used as a qualifier like it was. I think that is probably a sound idea. So for this item, I'm going to remove these two.
Yeah. Yeah, they do not make a lot of sense there.
Yeah. So we'll remove this one and save. And this one disappears. And I'll remove this one as well and publish. And I'm not sure if there's this thing that ranks the quality of an item. We should have checked that before and see if it increases when the constraints violations goes away. I don't know. Perhaps
the
someone in
worst
the audience
score.
know. Yeah. Maybe you can even feed an old version and see it change over time. Maybe I can do that while you're editing.
Yeah, let's see.
Something better. And then I think there's something else down here, because this is a common one that you and I have encountered because we have been working on the Swedish agencies, and they do have an organization number, and they all have this flag because it says something here. Item requires statement constraint. This is a long, complicated word, but it's explained a little bit easier here. An entity with the Swedish organization number should also have statement legal form. So let's go just take a quick look at this property. And as you can see here in the examples, there are different companies. They have an organization number. And here's also one of the things that keep tracks of this. The Swedish Companies Registration Office also has a number, of course. But in the constraints here, we can see, let's see if we can find it. So this one is an interesting one, a type of constraint, because this is sort of like, it infers that by having an organization number, it should probably also have a legal form. And it's a suggestion constraint, so it's not mandatory, but you get this little flag sign there. And this is actually correct. Like, this is properly done. Like, everything that has organization number has some sort of legal form because they are a legal person. So that's the entire idea. So this is a very good constraint.
Yeah, and
But
it's very nice to see that example of that being a suggestion, so you
mhm,
can kind of make them less or more important.
yes.
And
So
it's not
now,
obvious from the UI, so it's
yeah,
usually a good trick to go and actually check on the property to
yes,
see, did I do something wrong or is it
yeah.
actually okay?
Even though I think this help text is really good here.
Yeah.
So this is good. So what we need to do to fix this, if it's not totally clear, is that I have to add a new statement to this item with the property legal form and some value for it. And I guess this is why it hasn't been done yet, because I didn't know which one it had. And it turns out we don't have the item for it yet. So we'll have to create that
Oh.
item. So I had to go and do some little bit of research here earlier today. And I found in, now this is in Swedish, this is the tax agency. Here they define the organization number, they define which kind of agency that gives out the organization number per legal form. And of course, then they
Oh.
have listed all the legal forms here. So that was very handy. And here they also have some sort of code of this. And what we want here is the legal form. And this is a state entity, I think it would be
Yeah.
in English. So very generic name, and this is used on all the state level agencies, which the Environmental Protection Agency is. So I'll first have to go and create a new item for this. So I'm just going to do a quick check again here if anyone did this between 12 o'clock when I did this research or now. Maybe it should be singular. So we have one in Denmark. And of course, we will have a lot of Parliament documents around this. Not a lot, a few of them. This one is similar, but not the same. All right, so now I can go and create a new one. I'll do this in Swedish now, just to get it proper and correct. So I'll just say legal form for, and I should probably spell that correct, for state agencies. I also should spell it correct in two places. That's. And now let's just quickly give it some basic items so people can know what it is. So this will be an instance of a legal form. Would be also better if I could spell it correctly. There we have it. And publish that. And then we could add country Sweden. There we go. And I'll actually add this as a source as well.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense if someone would go ahead and improve upon it.
Yeah, then we'll find it. So reference URL here. I can actually add one more thing easily here as well, because we have in here who is actually doing this. And this is unusually the Statistics Central Bureau, or Statistics Sweden.
Statistics Sweden.
Yes. So would
You
you say that
sure?
would be the operator?
No, I think we got one for
Maintainer?
someone issuing a form.
Sure.
Yeah.
Authority? Yes.
Yeah, I think that would be the
Yep.
one.
Sweden. We can add a reference here as well. But this is a little bit of a rabbit hole where you always end up. It
Yeah.
turns out you have to do some of the infrastructure before you can actually go do what you want. But here we have something at least. Let's add something in English so we can see. I think this would be the best.
Yeah. And even if it isn't the best one, someone can go ahead and edit
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I should actually add this there as well, so we're not.
You are missing a letter in the second word in the English description.
I also have two. Yes. Oh,
There we go.
there we go. All right. And now let's head back and do the edit we needed to do. So to get rid of this constraint, we had to add a new statement. So I'll see, I press A for add statement. Go there, down, and I'll now add legal form property, and I'll add this new thing here, publish, and now let's see. It didn't disappear immediately, but I might have to reload now because this is a new thing. Interface. All right.
Nice
So
one.
one done there. Now I know that we have probably around 230 something more of these. So I'll do the rest in a quick statement.
You just
But
created a lot more work for yourself.
yes, of course, that's always good. But it really improves the quality because now people actually will know. I think this is something that not every Swede knows, that this is actually this kind of legal form. That was news to me. So
No.
that's really good.
Yeah. For me, it was news. We had a couple of different type of government agencies on that page as well,
Yeah.
and I didn't know they were split in that way.
Yes. So we're going to go to a next level or two levels down in your sort of, this is a municipality. This is my home municipality. So let's check if we find any errors in this one. And I think that we will find some other errors here, hopefully some. Oh, here's something interesting. Head of government. All right. So here it says, if you have this property, you should qualify it with some starting time. There's unfortunately no reference here, so I'll have to do some quick searching here. Let's see, add the municipality name. Here we find a list of something. Hopefully it has a date for starting. It did not. If I go up a level. No. Let's check the party page, see if it says something there. No, it doesn't even support the statement. I'm going to leave that for now because that's perhaps a little bit too much research that I didn't prepare. Yes, we have a nice little Jane is saying here as well. Yes, rabbit holes are all over. I'm not going to chase this particular rabbit holes, even though, yes, I think we're all sort of kind of data rabbits.
I think it's very common here that we ending up going down rabbit holes.
Yeah.
We try not to the extent
Not too
we would
much.
actually like to.
Yeah. That's sort of both. I think that is not only for Wikidatians, I think that's for Wikimedians in general,
Yeah.
because I also know when you're on Wikipedia, you're doing sort of the same thing.
Yeah. If we would go down every rabbit hole we encounter, we would have an episode hours and hours long.
Here on the population statement, we have another type of thing here. So it also wants a new qualifier. It wants the determination method. This one has a reference stated in something, probably only a Swedish label. Oh, so this is a report from the Statistics Sweden. So this one we actually can edit immediately.
Yeah,
so
I think all of this.
Yeah, so we'll add this one, determination method, and I think the common one that it's used is statistical updating. I've seen this one being used a lot. It's a kind of empty item, but it's used. I did a little query and saw it had a heavy use. So I think this will be good. And I'll add this here, and hopefully the flag disappears. So that's good. And now this is for every one of these. I'll not do all of them here because that will be just a lot of clicking, but I have something to go back and do after this thing. I think we have one more interesting thing here in the bottom. Oh, this is a very common one. So we have the official website here, and the website is correct. And it says it should specify the language of this website. And that's, of course, very helpful for you, especially if there are websites in several languages. So let's check the website. 99.999% sure it's going to be Swedish. It was. So let's add that as a qualifier. It's even one of the suggested one. Swedish published and imported from Italian Wikipedia. Still.
Yeah, it's because the reference didn't change.
No, this is another one.
Oh, is it another one?
So here it says, this official website should only be on one particular item. Like you shouldn't have the official website on two items. And unfortunately here we don't have the English label, so we'll have to navigate here to see what it is. This is where I spent years 7 to 9 in school. And yes, they have the same here. So this is not right. Because when we go to this website, this is not about the school. Probably there is something about the school here. Possibly.
Yeah.
Down here.
Here we go.
So this is the URL we want there instead. So let's go back, edit this one, change to the right one, and publish. I get a warning that you should probably not change this one if you don't know what you're doing. But this one was actually wrong. It hasn't changed. So I'm going to persist and press there. Oh, we still have something here. But this time it didn't update. So we'll reload here and see if it disappeared. Yes, it disappeared here. Did it disappear here? Not automatically. Let's reload this one. And where did it go? Yes, so no warnings anymore here. I think we have one more warning on this item. Let's see if we can manage to fix that one as well. And this is similar to the, it jumps up and down here. It's similar to the one we had before, because we have the Swedish organization number, and it says, well, then it should have a legal form. And it doesn't yet. This one is easy though, because we have the item.
Oh.
Because the item should be the same as the instance of the municipality of Sweden.
Oh.
So we'll just repeat this one. And I'm going to use this gadget to copy this to the same entity, but to another property. Now I don't remember what legal form had. Where did we have it?
There.
1454. So I'll copy this to P1454. And reload. And now I guess we're going to get a new warning. Let's see if we do.
Oh.
So I guess we're going to get the warning that this isn't a legal form that we just added. No, it disappeared. All right, good. Let's check the legal form statement as
exactly.
well. See if it... Oh, we have something else there as well. Let's get back to that if we see the legal form first. So we saw... Yes.
There we go.
So it's not an instance of legal form. Currently isn't. But now we know that it is. So we're going to add that into... No, this is subclass of... We're actually going to add a new P31 on this one then. So let's go add instance up. Instance of the form as well. All right. So now this one will disappear. We had one more here I wanted to fix. We saw on the coat of arms. It's hard to see here in the interface, but this one, well, let's switch to Swedish for a moment, because I think that will actually be easier for you to understand. There, and let's go down to the coat of arms again. So this is coat of arms, and it says Östhammars coat of arms, starting date. So this one is the one we currently have, and before that, it had the Östhammar city coat of arms. But I think this is actually wrong, because we have a separate item for Östhammar city, the old municipality. So this is redundantly added, in my opinion.
Indeed.
And it also says this one already exists on this item, Östhammar city. So I'm just going to be remove this one, and I think
I think I saw some replaces statement as well, pointing to that item.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here.
Exactly. So that item will now still have that old.
Yeah. Yeah. And it had a warning because it was duplicated, and that warning will disappear. Oh. And Nicholas says, yes, say no to redundancy. Yeah. And this is sort of what you might encounter, like when you're editing. You will find different kinds of things. If you don't know, you can always click, go see what are, is there some extra on the property. Sometimes it might even help to go to the property talk page to see what was meant with, because there's some more background information there. And it, specifically right now, I didn't have to add an exception to the property constraint or anything like that, but that might very well happen, because as we said, this is under progress and we improve as we find the things and go deeper and getting more nuance to our items. All right, so
Indeed.
that's the manual interface. Now we're going to see a little bit of different take on this.
Yeah, but I'm actually gonna start by sharing the link to the Wikidata Quality Days because they're currently
Ah,
ongoing. They have been going on for a couple
yes,
of days. I think it's tomorrow as well. We are in the program, but there is also a bunch of author stuff in the program, which I really believe you should check out.
yes.
Um,
And I guess
and I'm
specifically tomorrow, there is a constraint at Tom,
yeah,
where people will be working on constraints, both presenting it better, but also doing some practical collective hands-on editing.
indeed. And that's a great program. It's full of stuff. I hope all of you have your Sunday cleared for the quality days. And I'm gonna do a shout out for another link. We have actually added a talk page to our list of episodes where we hope that people will post suggestions of what we can present in the future, or just comments or questions after episodes and such,
Mm.
to give us more input essentially. But with that said, I'm gonna start doing a bit of editing. Um, So I'm actually gonna start by heading over to a property I know can be improved. And this is very meta. I ended up just stumbling upon this when researching this, and I saw something very interesting on the constraints for a property here. We got a bunch of statements which are property constraints, which appears to be missing something,
You
which I
might zoom
felt
in
was,
one level.
yeah, even two for
All right,
myself.
that's very good. Thanks.
So it says something here about the property constraints which are missing, and I think this is a really good example because this is actually a property you can use both on commons, in structured data on commons, as well as on Wikibase or Wikidata here. We can actually see that down here. We can see that it can be used on Wikibase item, essentially a Wikidata item in this case, and in the media info, which is on commons. But here we could also find things like themes and so on. So I want to see what this is about and see what we can do about it. So we might do a bit of constraint editing here. So an entity, or in this case actually a property, which is technically also entity, with property constraint should also have a statement property constraints, property scope constraint. And this is probably one of the more common constraints we can see, but I actually want to kind of show off how this works so we can kind of see we got this overall property constraint, then we got a statement, and then we do the rest of it in qualifiers. So I want to head over here to see, let's see, what did it say we wanted? We want property scope constraint. Oh, does it auto-complete it for me? Not yet. Property scope. There we go. So I want to add a qualifier for this. Item of property constraint. I'm not really sure. I think it's item of property constraint. Let's see if we can actually see some documentation here or find an example. So this is a Wikidata item. So a lot of the actual rules that makes up constraints are just regular Wikidata items as well. So constraint to define the scope of property as main property, as a qualifier, as a reference or combination. Qualify with property scope, that's what we want. So essentially what this property scope constraint is doing is saying that where on an item or media should this be used. John also had this as an example. It should be used as a main value when it came to programming paradigm. And we can add this for this. So this is a common cultural heritage in Sweden, URI, to reference people, objects, and so on. So first of all, we need a property scope here, and it could be on as main statement. I think that's it. As main value, property scope type. That it can be, then it's just an external identifier down at the end of an item. Then do I do it this way? No. Property scope. And it can also be in a reference, because we could essentially say that this database contains information from this, and then use the identifier for that as well. I do not think there is, or nothing comes to mind where it could be used as a qualifier. So I'm going to leave that out, but in case someone knows where it could be used as a qualifier, I think they should go ahead and add it. So I think we could say as reference here.
Yeah.
Property scope type, and I'm gonna publish this and see what happens. We see it merged it, so that it looks like this ones with multiple values. And here, actually, I didn't even need to reload it here. It just removed it all. So that looks just like it should. And this is essentially how you edit property constraints. Now, essentially, if you would add this in a qualifier, this would now raise a little warning there. And you could go here and have a look. Does this make sense? You could start something on the talk page if you don't think that's the case, or move on. So now I want to play a little bit with the Wikidata query service and constraints, because we can actually query.
Just a thing, when you added this now, there's also database reports being run daily. So I guess tomorrow we'll see if there are any things that are popping in from this constraint being added.
Yeah, so there is a
tomorrow.
community run bot, I think, which like make pages for, hey, here for this identifier it increased or decreased the quality, which is great. But so this is a rather interesting thing, actually, how, because to a certain extent the constraints or the constraint violations when something is wrong is actually exposed in the Wikidata query service, but it's not always, and I will illustrate that later on. But for now, let's query this and see what it looks like, just data modeling wise. So I'm gonna start with my standard, select star where something, and go from there. So I think a great example for something we could query for is, let's say, let's start actually by showing the data model. So we can select something, and then we can select the wiki base. This is a good trick when you're exploring a data model. So you can actually just add the star, and then just put variables on both sides of the predicate, the RDF predicate, essentially, that defines the statement, and just do something like this. And here we're actually gonna put in this value, which stores it, and it should be has violation for constraint. That's quickly done, and I'm gonna add a limit to this. This will just allow us to see like what does we have on each end of this. So
nice
doing
with
that,
autocomplete on the long one.
yeah. And here we go. So you can see it says VDS and then Q and then a long number. And here we can say it does the same. And VDS is essentially a statement or a claim. So if we can actually go and visit one of this. So in this case, you can see we actually get linked directly to this particular statement here. And we can see it up in the URL here. And we can see that this one we visited does have a potential issue here. And that's all. It's like a catch-all for issues. It doesn't say which issue if you aren't looking at this. This is also a statement we can see. But what could that be in the author end? And now we can see the actual constraint that we're the problem. So it stores on each way. However, now let's try to do that for Swedish municipalities and check their statement for website and see if we can list all of those issues. So Jan had an example where it was missing the language, and it should be super common. So let's make a query for that. We can keep this in here as a reference, but I want to essentially select an item, and I want it to be instance of Swedish municipality. Oops, that's not it. I want instance of first and two. Instance of VD. That's a lot of things.
The tricky one is it is named Municipality of Sweden.
Oops, and did I do something wrong? Yeah, yes. You said it.
Yeah, it's backwards. Or it's not backwards, but it's not like in Swedish.
Of Sweden. There we go. And then we want the actual. So we want their official websites if there is a problem with them. And then, so we would normally use VDT here, but that would give us the value, for example, the URL. Now we want to get the statement itself, which holds things like the qualifiers and so on. So that would be just a P. And here we would do official website, and this is a statement. And now we should be able to use this below. So that should be statement. Wikibase has violation for constraint. That looks good. Let's run it with 5 and you see that it appears to be working. It does. So I'm going to go ahead and add the item label and statement, because it's really nice to have that link directly to it. And let's give this let's actually call this constraint because it's the constraint statement. And we should be able to do away with the limit here. We need to add the label service. And that should be it. That works for now. Yeah, that looks correct. So we got 24 results. And that might seem a little low, you might think. Or what do you say, Jan?
I would have expected it to be more, but on the other hand, I have been working on this, so
Oh,
maybe we're actually getting close to be done.
yeah. Checking an example here, and that was unnecessary. I didn't need to click on the item. I can actually click on the statement. That's a little easier here. And it says, oh, if it wouldn't move me, there we go. Official website. We got the constraint, the official language. I'm betting it's Swedish. It appears to be Swedish. Gonna do that quickly because I don't want to leave it like this. Language of worker name, Swedish. And I'm gonna publish that. It still got something. I think it got a similar thing that it had
Yes.
going on as before. I'm gonna leave that for now. It seems like we can do a bit of a bot job or something.
Perhaps.
Going back here, however, something I want to, and we can actually see this. This is really nice. So we can see the municipality twice because it has more than one issue with its. So that's actually a thing in the UI. You only see one at a time, but here we actually get both of them listed. So both this was about it not being having that language qualifier, and this is about it not being unique. So that's really nice that we got both of them. However, this is something we can query at least to a certain extent without any without this. This is like a catch for all, as I said. We could query here just for, hey, give me everything which is missing the language. So I can do something like this, and I actually want to do this to demonstrate something. So here we could also say minus, and then we could say statement. Oops, if I can spell. Statement should not have the qualifier language of work or name. Like that. And I want to try running this to see what number we do get. So now we can see we got a lot more. We got over 247. And this is because the inner working of what we see here. So if I would copy the link to one of the items and have a look on what data is actually behind here. And I have shown this a couple of times, and also last week we can see I just put the URI for the item and put RDF at the end. And we can see what actually is the data behind this that essentially is exposed in the Wikidata query service. And I want to search for has violation constraint. And we can't find it here because that is something that doesn't come from this RDF. It doesn't come from directly Wikidata itself, so to say. It's actually something that is a separate process and is being added on top. There are a couple of things in the Wikidata query service that isn't coming from Wikidata items themselves. I think there's also a separate graph, for example, for something called DCAT AP, which is just meta information about Wikidata's dataset. But this is an interesting thing because this is about violations. It's not from Wikidata items, and it's in the default graph, so to say. If we would try to query for example, that DCAT data here, we wouldn't be able to because we would actually need to point select from a specific graph. I think we might show that sometime, but it's not currently relevant. But what actually happens here is that the Wikidata query service does only contain things that have recently been. So what it actually does, if we would go and visit an item like this, it actually now, as we visit it, checks the quality constraints. And when it does that, it puts them into the query service. But if we aren't visiting it, it won't put it into the query service until you visit it or make an edit to it. So if it isn't an item that is like having high frequency editing, it will be missing here, and it's just one of the current limitations of this. But if you are, for example, you're doing a workshop on a quite a limited set of items, this is still a nice way to have this catch for all to find the issues. Just because you can list all of the statements with a problem, even if there are multiple problems, they will just appear multiple times, and you can see directly what type of constraint they have been failing. But it has these major limitations that you can't actually do it this way. So we can see this illustrated. We got 24, and here we got 247, even if this one was a catch for all. But we can also, let's try this for some more than Swedish municipalities. Municipalities, because you also said, John, that you had recently been working on Swedish municipalities. So let's see if we can actually see this by having a look at Norwegian ones, which I imagined you haven't been working on recently.
No, I haven't been working on those.
Municipality of Norway. There we go. We're gonna start with this minus and see what we get. They also got quite a bit more of municipalities in Norway. Actually, we got quite a few ones here with the language constraint, and I imagine that my example here might be suboptimal because in Norway their various official languages are much more commonly used than in Sweden. In Sweden, we can go to a Swedish municipality website and be sure that it's in Swedish, but in Norway, you wouldn't be so sure about which Norwegian language it would be in. So I imagine that's why we're seeing this. But let's also do it without the minus and just do the general, this one. And see, we got 24 for Sweden. We only got 3 here. But even so, Norway has over 100 more, no, a little less than 100 more municipalities. I think they got 356 municipalities. And even if Sweden has a lot more, we have recently been having frequent editing by y'all, and therefore a lot more was exposed in the query service. And if someone would just go ahead and do a lot of editing on the Norwegian ones, they would show up here. So that's a bit about how this works. And I'm quite interested in how it will be in the future. And I imagine as this develops, we will go back to this. But I really like it, even if it has this minor constraint for the moment itself. So yeah. And I think that was very much what I wanted to show today.
All right. So that was a little bit about property constraints. And as we mentioned in the middle, there will be continued work on property constraints tomorrow. Michael Peel, who's having it, says it will be freeform. Just a quick presentation at the start.
Yeah.
So that's in the workings, and of course there are other things as well. And this quality days we saw also here in the chat, it runs until the 15th, so that's in the middle of the next week, I guess.
Yeah,
something.
that's
So
plenty of days.
Yeah.
And I imagine even the last couple of days there are probably recordings if you head over to the program.
Yeah.
So you can catch up with it as well.
Yeah, and from this link here, there will be links to the recordings as they get uploaded during, or with a little bit of a lag, of course. And next week, I think we do have a plan for next week. What will we be doing then?
I think we actually got a request a couple of weeks back about showing up a little bit more about gadgets and user scripts. So I think we will go through our favorites and also show how they are enabled and installed. I aim to show off a new one, which I have been working on. So yeah,
Yeah, and we have of course like often returned to one or a few tools while we've been showing off some workflow. So this will be probably be a little bit different. This will be more of a smorgasbord of gadgets where we'll not
yeah,
do a lot of edits with them, but rather just show the capabilities, and then you will have to go to explore yourself. And I think this was like our first uh, serious request where someone reached out to us out of the stream and asked for something, and we were very happy, and that's what triggered us to set up this talk page as well.
yeah.
So,
So that's
so
this URL
yeah,
that you
yeah.
changed
So,
on there.
so please, we are of course you can reach us anywhere, and we'll take requests anywhere. But if you want to also perhaps ask questions about something we did or suggest improvements for our
Yeah,
workflows, this is
yeah. Or
going
just
to be a
ask.
central place.
Oh, in what episode did you do that? I remember you did that. Just ask there, and we will try to answer, and maybe other people will answer as well.
Yeah,
So that's a great link. We hope you will use it.
yes. And with that, I guess we're out for this week, and see you next week, and happy editing.
Happy editing.